Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kaboom Talks. Kaboom Talks is where we bring you stories that often get missed in the loud commercial jungle. And along with that, we bring you people who are creators of these stories. And this time, we have with us Kavita Ayagari. And I'm super excited to have her because she's like us, a communications professional. And someone who kind of very passionately works in the social impact space. And I have to tell you, and this is something that the Kaboom team often repeats, is every time we've reached out to Kavita, she's kind of very graciously, promptly given her time and her expertise, and also sort of very, very passionately contributed to the discussions that we've had. And it's that passion that we absolutely love about her. And to kind of make a more formal introduction of Kavita, we have someone whose career spans 20 years on varied issues. As a marketing and communications person who went on to work on social impact, Kavita's journey is fascinating. She's worked in the field of advocacy, communications, and social impact. And today, she's the country director of Howard Delafield International and the team lead for the game of Choice Not Chance, a project funded by the USAID. She has led innovative private sector partnerships projects on adolescent health and family planning, has worked with the International Union Against TB and Lung Disease on increasing political will and resources for TB, and at the Save the Children on newborn child survival. All issues we know are not easy to deal with. She's currently pursuing a PhD at the JNU in the Department of Community Health and Social Medicine. And that is where we're going to start, Kavita. So tell us, how did it all happen? How did you start sort of doing your PhD?
I was working in Save the Children on a newborn child survival project. And I just felt that, while I've worked in communication and while I've done a lot of work in the communication part of things, I hadn't done, really community medicine, really understanding the challenges one faces on the field, and to me, that kind of grounding was what I was seeking when I joined JNU as a direct PhD candidate. And it was just the work that we were doing on No Child Born to Die, a campaign that Save the Children was running in the states, which had very high child mortality, that made me, do this. I mean, I applied, I got in, and fortunately or unfortunately, I've since been associated with, this PhD, but it hasn't been completed yet, so it is pending.
So tell us a bit about your journey from, working at advertising agencies, working on brands like Nestle, and then coming to the social impact space.
So I'm a trained communication professional. I mean, I did my master's in economics and then joined the Indian Institute of Mass Comm. And I did my advertising in PR specialization, and I joined the advertising world. I mean, I started off with new brands and, new brand launches really. And then, part of the journey was with Pepsi, part of it was with Mortine, part of it was with Nestle. And then I decided that, I wanted to do something which is a lot more to do with the social impact space, where you're actually doing something, to make a change to people's lives. So I made a transition. I joined Cry. And after that, it's just been one long journey. That's all.
So tell us where that journey has brought you now and what do you do now?
So I think over the past few, years, I mean, I joined Cry. I worked in fundraising essentially, and post that, I made a switch to the public health sector, and I started working on behavior change communication. So I've worked across many agencies now, which is really about talking about health issues, and taking these two beneficiaries that who need to know about what these issues are. Their understanding of these issues is very different from how, let's say, the medical world sees it, or how when you have a problem and you have, let's say, TB. I mean, it's a serious disease, but the challenges on the ground are very different. People do not get themselves tested. They don't understand that 2 हफ्ते अगर खांसी हो रही है तो हमें टीबी का टेस्ट कराना चाहिए. These are simple things, but people don't understand the gravity of the situation. They're not consistent with their medication. Now, a doctor has prescribed a medicine after seeing what your problem is. Now, the challenge for communication is people are not completing the course. It's a long thing. It's a 6 month course, and then there is MDR-TB. So I'm just saying that the challenges in public health are very different. Like hand washing is a very simple method which can save lives, but try teaching people about hand washing and getting them to do it, consistently day after day. It's really challenging. These are habits, so these are difficult, and therefore I felt that public health is a very challenging space to apply myself as a communication professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what we've seen too, because preventive health, one, is something that none of us care about. And especially if you go down to lower socioeconomic regions, then preventive health is the lowest in priority for very, very, very real reasons, because the priorities are very different, right? And therefore, to be able to talk about health in that context becomes even more challenging. But in terms of the work that you're doing now, which is so much more sort of in tune with a younger audience. So tell us a bit about what you do at in your current role, and yeah.
So this is one of the most exciting and innovative projects that I've been on. I think it's adolescent sexual reproductive health. So it's an area which is taboo. Um, Girls cannot be open about questions that they have around missing a period. They can't be open about we don't even go to the market and get our menstrual pads without a black cover on it. There are lots of myths and misconceptions. So this kind of an area, I mean, to actually reach girls and get them to understand and get over these barriers, which are these taboos, which don't allow them to seek proper advice and proper information. So, this project is really addressing that gap, that barrier of access to correct information, to actually services, helplines, which can actually help girls, and ultimately to resources which help them, empower them to make choices which really matter and which can improve their lives and their health. So this is a gaming project. And so because adolescents are on their mobiles, they're on the games. We have a country, with a lot of gamers, 250 million gamers, of which 43% are women. So it's a huge, let's say, audience out there of games. Ours is a learning game. It's a learning game. It's all about learning by role playing. So it's a role play based learning game, and it's a very exciting project because girls get to play the role of our protagonist, who's called Nisha, and through her they experience her journey, navigating through negotiating with parents, taking up internships, meeting a boy, understanding menstrual health challenges, understanding about consent, contraception, and finally negotiating to delay her marriage. So that's what the game is about.
It sounds so fantastic. And the game that Kavita works on is called Go Nisha Go. So Kavita, the norm change space we know is like extremely difficult, and you're working on sexual and reproductive health, which is even more challenging, exactly because of what you said, the stigmas and the taboos attached, and the fact that girls are taught not to question a lot of things, and they kind of raised around with a silence around them, and that becomes a huge challenge and a barrier. So when you're working on something so challenging, What exactly does building agency for girls mean in these situations?
So, I think building agency is all about three things. It's one is about building informed choices or informed decisions. How does one learn to make decisions which are informed, which is not just our bit? The second thing, which is how does one get the confidence, to make these decisions? And the third is how does one practice or show self-efficacy in making, these kind of decisions? So those are the three, let's say, areas that we focus on. One is how does the game and how do you as a player become, able to make informed choices about your life? How do you then, show confidence and navigate, all the relationships that you have to be able to make those choices? And then finally, how do you actually, if you have an intention, how do you translate it into a practice? How do you actually go out and do it? So I think that self-efficacy is a very important indicator for us for agency.
You put it so well, and you make it sound very simple, but we all know that these three steps are kind of life defining in a lot of ways, and then they're very, very difficult to achieve, right? So and it's so beautiful that you say informed choice, because I think it's very important for all of us to understand that just providing choice is not agency. Choice is not agency. It's that ability to be able to exercise that choice that becomes agency, right? And for that, the confidence to be able to take a decision, and then actually be able to navigate, your family, your community, the society, everything. Is It plays such an important role, and to kind of, often we kind of take the girl outside her real space, and then train her, and then put her back into that space, and then she's like, okay, I'm all trained, but what do I do with all these people around me who don't want me to do anything? So I think, yeah, I mean, you sort of point out informed choices, confidence, and the self-efficacy to be able to exercise the choices that you make, is such a simple way of defining how norm change can take place. But all of this now is happening through digital technology. Now, for the longest time, we said girls are not digitally active, girls are not on phones. So why should we be like, we shouldn't try to sort of talk to girls over phones, and we shouldn't use digital technology for girls. And I'm completely with you where we say that that's not true anymore. Girls are on phones, and girls are using the digital technology almost as much as boys. Not exactly there, but the difference in the percentage is not that high anymore. But the other thing that we like to do is write off digital as frivolous, right? I mean, it's frivolous, it's the algorithms controlling everything. There's really nothing that much that can happen, largely because we don't know how to kind of evaluate what has happened and all of that. So tell us, what do you think really about, and like the decisions behind deciding that this is going to be a digital program and not really something that happens on the ground? Like, how did it go about? How did you take that decision? How did you convince people that, hey, digital is not just frivolous? There is a huge opportunity that lies there.
So I think there are two parts to your question. One is, of course, how did we arrive here? It is completely thanks to USAID, because we were responding to a innovation grant challenge, and they had asked for interesting ideas for reaching consumers directly. So it was a DTC, direct to consumer um, challenge that we responded to. And it was really about how do you reach adolescents directly, and how do you, break barriers to access that they face. Now, most barriers, if you look at adolescents, are because of adults. I mean, they cannot talk about problems that they are having. They find it very difficult to go out and convince adults around them that this is what I am going through. I mean, if it's a menstrual health challenge, or if it's a consent based challenge with a relationship, these are not issues that they can talk about easily. Even if when you have a teacher in a class, many students will think 10 times before talking about issues they're facing directly with the adult. So our project is really about going directly to girls. It is about, in a way, placing access to resources, information directly into their hands and helping them, practice choice making. So they get to experience a problem, they see in the game how they can resolve it, they make choices, they are given solutions, they even experience the outcome of those choices. So it's really like doing in a virtual world what you cannot do in a real world. So you can access information in the virtual world very easily at in the palms of your hand through a click of a button. You can ask questions, which so we have this chatbot called Ask Pado in our game, and you can ask questions to the chatbot, and you will get answers to those questions, however sticky they are or difficult they are. So it's really about enabling access to correct information, to reliable, credible information through the digital space. And that's all we are trying to do. We're not taking the adult away. We are not taking anybody away. We're just trying to enable girls to have access to correct, credible information that will benefit them.
Fantastic. And the most interesting part about Go Nisha Go is that it's called a game of choice and not chance. And I think that's also like a framework that you've developed along with the game, right? And that's fantastic because, you know, um, within the sector for the longest time, we've seen games like Snakes and Ladders being the most favorite game that is used by everyone. And when we've designed games in the past, we've always said that Snakes and Ladder is a game of chance. There is really no choice you exercise there. Everything that happens to you is the roll of the dice. There is no decision making there. So if you reach a snake and something bad happens to you, it's just something bad happening to you. You've done nothing to get there. Or if you reach a ladder, it's like it's just been a good day and I reached a ladder. You're not making decisions, and that's the big difference here in what you're doing. And while it sounds very easy to say, as anyone who's designed any game, like even a simple game to play on the ground, if we've designed it, we know how difficult it is to really make something about choice and not about chance, because every game has an element of chance, right? So, and that's the nature of games, right? So how did you come up with that framework, and like, where was that decision? How did it happen? Because for me, that's like the most interesting part of it. Everything else is secondary, but that is like so interesting that so much thought was put into the fact that we're teaching girls that there are repercussions to the decisions you make, and therefore make informed choices, and make informed decisions, and sort of take your stakeholders along with you, and that's where you get to change your life, right? So how did you go about that, and tell us a little bit about that framework and everything.
I think I'll start from the beginning and I'll talk about our founder. So our founder is Dr. Susan Howard. She's the Harvard of the Harvard Delafield International. She has a co-founder called Sylvia Delafield. So it is really this concept of game of choice, not chance, really came from Susan's personal experience in her own life. It really goes back to her mother making a very bold choice in her life of going and studying further and negotiating her marriage. Uh, you know, so it really comes from that. So it comes from a story which is a lived experience of Susan's. And I think the framework that we thought of is, the life is the sum of your choices. So when we thought of this project, we really thought of how can we enable girls to understand that, the choices you make have an impact on your life. There is a consequence, there is an outcome of that choice. And, really through gameplay and game based learning, how do you enable girls to make these choices and learn through choice making? So it's really about, making a choice. If it's a bad choice, your scores are going to go down, your outcome is going to be pretty bad. And if it's a good choice, your scores are going to go up, and it is going to result in something that you want or you desire. So I think that's how the game is built. The game is built around this entire thing of situations, circumstances that girls find themselves in, and different choices are put forth. And as they make a choice, they experience the outcome of their choice, and they learn through play, you know, how their decisions really matter. And there is also this entire thing of having role models give them correct information. So that's also another very important tenet of game-based learning, that you have credible information coming from credible sources, which then allows you to believe and follow that what you've been told. So I think that is the second part of this game of choice, not chance, that you don't just make choices, you also are given information that helps you make informed choices. And you then, once you've made a choice, you also then are enabled to access services. So again, so it completes the entire loop of, you know, having information delivered to you by a credible source, practicing a choice, and then connecting you with resources and services and products that can benefit you.
Brilliant. It's always so inspiring when these things are kind of a part of real life stories, right? Because a lot of this learning is from the stories around us, from the stories we experience. And at Kaboom Talks, like, some of the audience that keeps coming back really comes back for these stories, and these stories that we've not heard. And how do we kind of weave in many of these stories into the products we create, into the communications we create, and how do lived experiences really become something that can empower other people. So tell us a bit about, and you know that Gonisha Go is also story based, right? I mean, there is a story running through it. So tell us a bit about the role of storytelling in designing the game, and what are the kind of stories that were used, and where did you find these stories? How did you come up with them? Stories around that.
So the game is completely, totally based on research. Our first step was we went to the girls. We went to girls in Delhi, we went to girls in Jaipur and Patna, and we did a big research, with girls about all the challenges they face when they're navigating adolescence. So and this game is completely based on all the insights we mined from the research that we did. And we were assisted by Girl Effect, who was our partner, who helped us do this research. Then the second stage was design testing. So we thought of concepts, we thought of Nisha as a character, and we went back to the girls. So this entire thing was a design co-creation process, a design testing process, where the game was then made with girls for girls. And finally, like any game, we tested it with the audience, and then we did the marketing for the game. So, ultimate challenge for, let's say a product that has been developed is how does it do in the real world, like when you launch it. And we were very, very happy because within the first month, we reached more than 50,000 players. And the Play Store rating was 4.5. And we were thrilled, at the initial launch time success. So I think that has been our process, that the entire game is really based on insights that have been mined from girls, and the game has been designed with girls. And then when we launched it, we had, girls have loved it. In fact, boys have loved it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we kind of leave out the boys because the game's actually meant for girls and boys, right? Yeah, so I mean, also, like, we know that when we design products and we design games, one of the big part is coming up with the names, right? Because there's just so many names out there in the universe. How do we decide on that one game? Like, why Nisha and why not anyone else? Why not Kavita? Why not Nirmala?
That you'll have to ask our game design head of design, game products, and that's Namita Mohandas, who heads our game design. But it's a name like any name that we came up with. The name of the game is something that we should credit our agency. We were looking at all kinds of names for the game, and then one of the things that inspired us was this entire thing of Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, which says Ja Simran Ja. So that Go Nisha Go came from there, and like go and live your dream life. That's where it comes from. Like, don't hesitate. Go and do what you want to do. So it's really about giving that bit of push to girls to go ahead and achieve what they have in their minds.
God, now that you've said that, I know a couple of team members are going to go and play that game just because you
I
said
hope
that
so.
reference comes from Jasim Ja. Who would have thought of that? We thought it's like Go Nisha Go. You know, there's like action in it. There's like movement in it. There's like, you know, it's
There
very
is.
positive. It's so aspirational. I mean, if we had to do a breakdown on why is it called Go Nisha Go, we'd come up with all these theories and probably never thought of Jasim Ja.
But I also feel that that the game is really about all that. It's really about pushing girls to really explore and not be shy, be confident, take choices, and make choices confidently, and then go ahead and live the lives that they wanted or they imagined for themselves. So that's what the game is about. It does have a lot of movement, it has a lot of action, it has romance, it has travel. So it's a travel game, and girls get to explore 4 cities in India. And it's all about meeting inspirational, aspirational women. So to inspire girls to say there are others out there who've achieved their dreams. You can as well.
Yeah, so now there's two reasons. We at Kaboom have explored the game, and we totally recommend everyone to go and play the game. But along with that, I mean, popular culture references are always fantastic to have, and they kind of touch us somewhere, right? I mean, at least my generation, which grew up with Dilwale, would probably be very excited about this reference for sure. Um, so that's all like the hunky dory nice part. Now to kind of some of the tougher questions when you work with digital technology, right? I mean, the world that we live in, we know that while digital sort of opens the world and it kind of helps us become a global citizen, what it also does is it reduces us to data. And for any educational product working in the digital world, like consent is the cornerstone of it, right? And especially when we're working with an audience which is young, which may not be which may be educated but not completely informed in terms of what consent means in the digital world. How does the game address this? Because this is fully digital, right? So how do you ensure that girls who play this game, they're not giving away crucial information, they're not becoming data, their private lives are not becoming, part of this large digital world? I mean, I know that you're personally very concerned about this. So how do you sort of address that?
So I think you're right. Digital is all about data. Uh, in a way, you have the age group of girls who are playing the game has been designed for 15 plus. The protagonist herself is shown as 19 plus, and she's a college-going girl. Um, so one of the things that we did is very early we decided not to collect any personally identifiable data, which is there is no name that you have to enter, there is no email, there is no telephone number, there is no address, there is no information like that which is collected in the game. You were assigned a name like an apple or a orange, and you play as that. So that is the first thing. The second is all data is aggregated. There is no, we don't know who the person is who's playing the game. So you cannot just go back to who is the person who's played the game. And at least from all the 270,000 downloads that we don't know who these girls are who have played the game, or who the boys are who have played the game. And so that is one of the things that we took care of very early in designing the project: the legal aspects, the data privacy issues, the confidentiality issue. It's also a solo game. It's not a multiplayer game, so nobody knows who's playing. It is your own, played by you on your own device, whether it's your own or it's a shared device. We also did a lot of checking to ensure that girls feel safe while they're playing the game. So one of the first things that happens is wear your earphones, okay, and so that you're talking about issues like menstruation, you're talking about consent. So you don't want, let's say, somebody else to hear that you are doing a game, you're playing a game about all these topics. So you have that privacy and you can do it. Also, the game is actually it's very informative only. It's not it's really based on the fact that there's a lot of information contained within the game about what are the products for menstruation, what are the myths that you usually face, and how can you then go about making choices that help you. So we've tried to be very conscientious when it comes to collecting data, at least personally identifiable data.
That's, yeah, that's so important, and that's really the difference between the market and when someone actually creates a game for social impact, because it's just difficult to believe in the other side of the world that someone's actually designing a game as comprehensive as Nisha Go and not collecting data, right? So that's something that's hugely appreciative of the game again, because to be able to preserve, the the privacy of a girl without knowing who the girl is, I think is these are all huge decisions to make, right? I mean, while it's very easy for us to say that we decided not to collect, to be able to decide that, because to collect that data also means that there could have been crucial changes made to the game. It does lead to that, right? But to decide that no, we're going to do it like we're going to give the privacy of the girls more importance than being able to improve the game in future is like a big decision to take. And I think that's hugely appreciative that you've kind of kept that in mind, and that privacy is sort of at the center of how the game has been designed itself, and it's not just something that's been thought of after the game's been designed, or it's something that came up later. So that's very nice. um so keeping that in mind, like, one of the questions that I have for you is, from a digital rights perspective, like, each one of us has some information about digital rights, but we're all largely sort of in the dark about what is the rights and the wrongs when in the digital world. So, from a digital rights perspective, for any young person who's accessing information online, or an educational digital platform, what is that one question that they should always ask, or what are those resources that could really help them to ensure their safety online?
We have a couple of partners who actually help do exactly this. I said that our game is like it enables access to resources and helplines through the game. So we have two partners. We have Rati Foundation, okay, which has this Mary Trust line, and then we have another helpline for menstruation, menstrual health management. So and of course we have the child line, for instance. So we give access to Rati Foundation, to Tech Sakhi, which is another partner, which deals with exactly this. If you are facing challenges of your data being compromised, what are you going to do? So let's say somebody has started stalking you on Facebook, made another page on you, uploaded content, which you thought was private. So while the game doesn't deal with this directly, what we've done is we've enabled access to our partners who can actually resolve these problems for anybody who finds himself or herself in a space where their data and their privacy has been compromised.
And along with that, what do you think that, when we go online, I mean, why just young, when any of us go online, what is that one question we should constantly ask ourselves?
Yeah, and it's difficult to make it just one question. I
Make
think
it.
increasingly, no, it is a challenge. See, because social media is really about becoming famous, I feel. You know, where you are known by a lot of people whom you do not know. I mean, I find Instagram profiles of young girls, have a public, like they allow people who don't know them to also comment and see their pictures. So, yes, we are in a world where everybody wants a bit of fame. And therefore, I think one of the safeguards that you must ensure is, you should know how to block people who are being trolls, who are saying mean things to you, You should know that, you know, if your privacy has been compromised, what to do about it. So these are things to consider before going and making your private life very public. And I think all of us are guilty. We all share information about ourselves on online spaces. And I think we have to be a little careful now because you do not want your data to get compromised. You don't want somebody else to become you and use your information for something which is wrong. And especially now where with AI you can make people say anything and you know you can make them do anything. It's quite challenging. I think data privacy is going to become a very important area of work, I feel.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's sometimes scary when you see all these AI versions of yourself or others you know, and and also like the amount of accounts that are getting compromised these days, the amount of accounts that are getting hacked these days, the number seems to have suddenly increased, and it just seems to be happening within your circles. And it's not something that happens to someone you don't know. It's happening to your dear and near ones, and that sort of it's like an alarm, right? I mean, where you say you need to wake up and you need to do something about this. And it's sort of it also brings us to this whole question of I mean, it's such a double-edged sword, because while on one side we say that we shouldn't be sharing our private lives publicly, but at the same time, there's so many people who've gained so much out of sharing parts of their lives, in the sense of not the 10 seconds of fame, but really being able to figure out what they want to do, right? Or and of course, Instagram's like our favorite uh, channel to bash, but Instagram's of course made a lot of lies. But putting that aside, there are platforms like LinkedIn, right, which professionals use, which is where you and I would put ourselves out there, and really talk about the things that we do, because it's important, and it's not about us, it's about the work that we're doing. But what we find is this caution sometimes stops people from being active there too. And sometimes that's holding yourself back, and that's kind of not giving you a space that you could have got otherwise. I mean, for people who sit in Delhi and Bombay, there's still access to a lot of people, a lot of conferences, meeting people that are working in the space that you want to work in. But when you're in a small town, for instance, and you want to reach out to somebody working in a large organization, these platforms are the ones that can really help you connect. And if you kind of stop yourself and block yourself and not be there, it's also something to really think about, that how do we find that balance? It's not like I have the answer, but how do you find that balance of being there, yet not putting ourselves out there in a manner uh, that can be too much, and what is too much? And I think these are conversations that we need to have a lot more of. And at the end of the day, compromising someone's information is incorrect, and it's wrong, and that's the wrong act. And not somebody putting something out there, right? So yeah, it's just one of those complicated things. Okay, so now to every donor's favorite question. We are doing something very interesting. You're using digital technology to reach girls. You have numbers in terms of how many people have downloaded the games, how many people have played the games. You probably can see how many people have finished the game, not finished the game. So there are percentages of that. But how does one measure the impact of a game? Like, at the end of the day, it's a game. You play, you move on. So how do you measure the impact of a game?
That's a very good question. I'm really happy to answer that actually. Um, I it asks as a learning game. So one is you can measure impact on whether you have delivered on your learning objectives. So what did you aim to do when you designed this game, for instance? What were your objectives with regards to menstruation? What knowledge indicators did you want to change? What attitude indicators did you want to change? What practices did you want to check for, or what access did you really create, because ours is the DTC intervention? So what access did you create? So I think we have done two very innovative things. So one is, of course, that we've done in-game data. So we've basically, from the choices that all those people who've played the game have made, we know the changes in levels of knowledge, the shift in terms of attitude, and the intention, for instance, to access an app, for example. So we have, we have the menstruation. I'll just give you an example. So in menstruation, for instance, we started with, girls believing that menstrual blood is impure. And then we have, we've given information that it's just normal. The blood is not impure. It's the, this is a process that's linked to fertility. And and after that, we have this very lovely mini game called Super Nisha, where you check, at the end. In fact, you have an episode on menstruation, and the next episode really begins with this mini game, where you check whether girls actually believe that menstrual blood is impure. So when, and then you check, you get the answers to this of all the people who've played the game, and you know that there has been a shift from those who actually said that menstrual blood is impure in the beginning, and those who now say that it's not. So we found like almost like a 48% difference between those who actually believed it was impure in the beginning and those now who don't believe so. So yes, I would say that that is one way of measuring. The second that we're doing is that we're doing an RCT. So we're doing a randomized control trial where we've got 2,000 girls. Half of them are in the control group, half of them are in what we call the encouragement group. The encouragement really is the game. So half of them do not get the encouragement, the other half get the encouragement, and then we measure the difference both in time as well as between control and the encouragement group. So we have, like just now, we've just concluded that, and we're going to be publishing the study. Very exciting results. Very exciting results is what we're seeing. We're soon going to be out about with it.
Fantastic. And like a 48% shift is like massive, right? It's a massive, massive shift in terms, especially attitudinal shift. Um, so yeah, it sounds very, very encouraging, and we're really looking forward to that study actually to see how the RCT was done and what the results of that are. It just yeah, it sounds like exciting times ahead. Um, but if
So
as we come, yeah,
I want to correct that. I mean, the 48% shift is what we're seeing from people who've played the game. So that is in-game data.
yeah.
We are going to get the RCT results soon. So we will be also knowing from the RCT what is the shift. So I just wanted to correct that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want people to
No, I mean that's
get
what
the
I
wrong
understood.
impression.
Right. That's what I understood. I'm sorry if I didn't put it correctly. Um, so if anybody in our audience has any questions, now is a good time to actually ask us those questions. And then otherwise, I'm going to like shift out of the game and really move back to sort of bit of storytelling. And so if anybody has questions, please type in your question and we'll be able to see it and we'll be able to kind of respond to that. Um, Kavita, with all the work that you've done around, like I'm sure storytelling has been like a key to a lot of projects that you've worked on, whether it's on TB, whether it's on newborn child survival, whether it is Gunisha Go. Tell us like something about how does storytelling for change really differ from just storytelling? I mean, is there a difference between the two, or is it just is it just the same?
It's much more tougher. Now imagine you're telling a story, and this is the story you want to write and you want to tell. That is one way of, that is a story. So it'll have an engaging plot, it'll have some compelling characters, it'll have twists, and it'll have, it'll have a conflict, it'll have an outcome, it'll be something that is relatable, and therefore it'll be about love, friendship, the emotions that move all of us. Now, when we are doing a game or a story which is basically a role play game, you are bound by, your vision for the game, your goal for the game, your objectives in each of the episodes you're designing. So a lot of the story has to be carved to meet those objectives. So it is a much more tougher job than plain storytelling to come up with a really compelling game that also engages, entertains, yet is a learning game. It's not easy.
True, that's so true. And to be able to meet those objectives and also meet them interestingly and engagingly is just it is a challenge, right? So here's a question that we have for all our guests who come to Kaboom Talks. Um, Tell us, in your experience, what are the three key ingredients that go into a good story, especially while talking to young girls? Kavita, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. You want me to say? I thought you were asking
Yeah,
the audience.
audience. I mean, yeah, I mean the audience. I'm
No, no.
sure.
In my, I'm happy to answer that question for me. I think a story has to have three critical elements. One is, of course, relatability. So I should be able to relate to that story. I mean, why is film so popular? It is popular because we relate to that storyline. Second is the characters themselves. Can we see ourselves in those characters? Can we see, like in our game, the father who is very strict and is somebody who Nisha has a challenging relationship with? Is very, I mean, is something that the girls loved. They said he's so, he's somebody we can identify with. The mother is a darling, she's like really happy to support Nisha. So they can identify with these characters. So to me, compelling characters are a very important part of it. And the third, I feel, is the conflict. Because without a conflict, you don't have a story. I mean, there has to be something you have to resolve. There has to be a twist in the plot, and you have to have an outcome at the end. So I think stories that really are engaging have these three ingredients in them.
Fantastic. I mean, that's like relatability, characters, and conflict. So you give us like a lot to kind of ponder or over, Kavita. And yeah, I mean, conflict is easy to say, but to create a conflict and then resolve it is the challenge in writing a good story, right?
So
And
true.
anyone who's ever written a story knows that this is the crucial moment in the story that they need to crack to be able to make the story work. um, so thank you so much for this lovely talk. Thank you so much for sharing so much. A lot of things that you said with so much ease that it sounds very easy, and it sounds like, oh, it's so obvious to do. But the fact is, I mean, the reason why I think you can say it so easily and confidently is because of all the thought and work that has gone into it already in the past years, and because it's not a game that was created over 2 months, right? It's taken time to create it, and I think all that work that was put into it in order to create it is where this kind of comes from, this ease with which you say these things. So if there's anything else that you want to add or say.
No, I think I want to acknowledge our team at Howard Delafield International. We're a very small team. We're not like a big organization. We're a woman-led team, and we have one boy working with us now. And we have, of course, now a new project in Nepal. So I just want to acknowledge the work of my team members in making the game reach where it is. I also want to acknowledge, a whole number of consortium partners. So, the people who did the research with Girl Effect, the people who did the design testing at Vihara, the people who made the game at Metamersive, the people who marketed the game at the Mullen Lintaz Group, the people who've helped us do the research at Population Council. I think each person, and now we're doing a youth engagement module with on the ground with girls, and that's with True Restless Development. So I hope I've not missed anybody, but I think all the consortium partners have really participated with us and collaborated with us. We also have like 26 plus other partners who've featured in the game. So, like I mentioned, Tech Sakhi and I mentioned Ratni Foundation. We have Pari, Be Safe. We have Anandi Pads. We have Minor Pads. We have so many people. Pink Legal, Project Nyari, Between Us, which is a PSI initiative. Say No Need. So we have lots of partners who have, and Teen Book and Love Matters. So I'm just saying that there are a lot of people who've come and collaborated with us for this game, and I'd like to acknowledge each one of them. I mean, this is just not the work of one person at all from any angle. It is everybody has contributed to make it where it is today.
Yeah, and it's so important to realize that to have this kind of an impact, it's
And
yeah.
one more person, the most key person, I think, USAID. I think they've been really fantastic donors. I mean, fantastic donors with the amount of trust and the amount of openness to listening to us and following us. Our when we have made a a proposition, they have been more than open to listening to us and doing as we've asked them. So they're very, very key in where we have reached with this game. And we're also making another game, so it's a game for boys.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really going to be again a game changer, and it's we're very excited about it. We'll be talking about it much more, and my colleague Namita is the one who's heading that, so I'm sure she will be more than happy to talk to you about it once we're a little more out in the open about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I look forward to talking to Namita and hearing more about this, because I think the work with the boys is just as important as working with the girls. And because at the end of the day, we're all looking at at gender equity and not anything else. So therefore, I think it's a yeah. I mean, this is very very exciting. I think we'll bring you back in some time, you or Namita, or you and Namita, in months to come, back to Kaboom Talks to really talk about the game with the boys. But till then, thank you so much for coming and taking this time out, Kavita. This has been very exciting. We're so happy to learn about the success of Nisha Go, and we really hope it reaches millions of other girls, because it's such an important game, and I think this collective impact that you've been able to create along with the partners is the reason why you have the kind of numbers that you have. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much for being here.
I really want to thank you, Nirmala. I mean, you and Payal have been, I mean, you got in touch with me and you kind of nudged me to do this. I was super nervous, but thank you for giving us this opportunity. We really value this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita. I hope you enjoyed it and it wasn't an
No, no, I do. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. And in the end, I'd like to thank the Kaboom team, and especially Payal, who kind of single-handedly manages Kaboom Talks, sometimes even remotely, thanks to the digital technology. So thank you everyone for attending, and see you at the next Kaboom Talks. And you can watch this episode entirely on the LinkedIn page.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye.